His birthday ended in humiliation. A year later, he's back with a lawyer, a lawsuit, and a $198,000 revenge plan. People think birthdays are harmless, sweet little bookmarks of time. They never see them for what they really are, mirrors. And mirrors don't lie. My name is David. I'm 27 now, but everything unraveled the day I turned 26. 1 year ago, almost to the hour. It was supposed to be simple. A quiet gathering at my mother's house in Elmridge, nothing lavish, just the annual charade. Same house, same chipped plates, same strained smiles. I wasn't expecting anything extraordinary, I hadn't in years. But I showed up anyway, carrying my own carrot cake in one hand because no one else ever got it right, and a bottle of discount Merlot in the other. The front door creaked as I pushed it open. Inside, the air was tight, heavy with something unspoken. My fingers curled tighter around the wine bottle. I should have turned around then. But of course I didn't. The dining room was half set, a cluttered rush job. Paper napkins folded unevenly, silverware mismatched. My mother's touch half-hearted, distracted. Karen, my sister, was at the table, eyes glued to her phone, offering the kind of nod you give a stranger in passing. Uncle Charles was already well into his whiskey, cheeks red, the smell of cheap cologne bleeding into the lasagna steam. And my father, of course, stood by the window, silhouetted by fading light, wearing the goddamn smirk. That hollow, weather-beaten thing that told me everything he wouldn't say aloud. You're not one of us. I set the cake down gently, trying not to drop it. Happy birthday to me, I muttered, the sarcasm half suffocated in my throat. No one laughed. We sat. No questions, no warmth. Dinner was lasagna again. Not because I liked it. No, because no one had asked. No one ever asked. It wasn't about the food. It was about what it revealed. I tried as I always did. Asked Karen about work, she mumbled something about a new client. I brought up my recent promotion, something I'd bled for, and received nothing but the clink of Charles's glass against his teeth. I even asked my mother about her garden, usually her favorite escape. Her response was silence. Eyes on her plate. Fork scraping ceramic. I told myself not to care. I'd told myself that 100 times. But then it happened. My father raised his glass and, with terrifying calm, said, You know, David, if you vanish tomorrow, life might actually get easier for the rest of us. Time didn't freeze. It shattered. At first, I thought I'd misheard him. Some sick, failed joke? But then Charles let out a wheezy laugh, slapping his thigh like it was stand-up comedy. Man's got a point, he wheezed between sips. I turned to my mother. She didn't blink. Didn't speak. Her face was a vacant field. No outrage. No surprise. And Karen, my sister, just scooped a bite of cake into her mouth and mumbled, Well, you do like to stir the pot. Something inside me recoiled. Not with anger. Not even hurt. Just detachment. Like stepping out of my own body and watching a stranger be humiliated. My fingers trembled beneath the table, nails pressing into my palm. My throat was dry, but I didn't speak. My heart pounded, but I didn't scream. I stood. Slowly. Carefully. As though rage might spill if I moved too fast. I nodded once. Got it. And I left. No slamming doors. No final words. Just a quiet exit into a night that felt colder than it should have been. Back at my tiny apartment in Belgrove, I sat in the dark for hours, watching headlights sweep across the wall like ghosts. My phone buzzed once. Then silence. I didn't pick it up. The thing that hurt wasn't what he said. It was how easy it was to say it. How it sat on his tongue like any other sentence. If you vanish tomorrow. The words chased sleep away. They buried themselves in my chest like splinters. And by dawn, I knew what I had to do. Disappear. Not to punish them. Not at first. I just needed space. Silence. Somewhere they couldn't ignore me because I wouldn't exist to them at all. I packed light, documents, laptop, a few photos from when smiles still meant something. I called my boss and used up the 3 weeks of vacation I'd hoarded like gold. I didn't say where I was going. I powered down my phone. And then I vanished. The place I went wasn't exotic. It was a forgotten cabin nestled deep in the woods near Wren Lake. My grandfather's place. He left it to me quietly through old paperwork no one ever bothered to read. No internet. No updated plumbing. Just pine trees, creaking floorboards, and the memory of summers spent chasing dragonflies and listening to his stories by the fire. To everyone else, it was an inconvenient relic. To me, it was the last place that had ever felt like home. It was mine. The cabin. The land it stood on. The keys that hung from my belt like a quiet secret. I had never flaunted it, never told them, because in their eyes, I had never really belonged. I was the outsider. The anomaly. The one who always felt like static in a symphony. To them, I was the afterthought. I arrived just after noon. The cabin was blanketed in dust, the air thick with stillness, but it greeted me like a long-lost friend. The fireplace sat cold and unused, the corners littered with cobwebs, and yet I felt something I hadn't felt in years: ease. I lit a fire. unpacked my books, made tea. The silence was not empty, it was chosen, deliberate. No phone buzzing with shallow concern. No veiled jabs disguised as jokes. Just stillness. A place where my breath could expand. In those first few days, I did what I hadn't dared in years. I unraveled. I cooked from memory, took long, winding hikes through the forest, and wrote in a journal I'd abandoned years ago. And sometimes, alone in that cabin with only the wind for company, I cried. Long, aching sobs that pulled from some hollowed part of me I'd forgotten existed. I replayed that birthday night over and over, each time peeling back a new layer. The smirk. The silence. The way no one flinched. They hadn't loved me. They'd endured me. And I had spent years trying to earn what should have been given freely. I was done being bearable. 7 days passed before I gave in to curiosity. I turned on the backup phone I kept buried in my bag, a burner for emergencies only. Just for a moment, just a peek. The screen lit up with missed calls and frantic messages. Karen, where are you? Dad, call me. It's urgent. Mom, please. We need to talk. Christopher, you need to fix this. Now. Dad, again, this is serious, David. You need to answer. I stared at the screen unmoved. Something was wrong, but it wasn't guilt I felt. It was suspicion. So I opened my laptop and connected to a hidden hotspot in the valley. Within minutes, what I uncovered turned the blood in my veins to ice. Overdrawn accounts. Default notices. Credit cards denied. Karen's car repossessed. A lien slapped on the family home. Late fees snowballing across every bill. Every account, every debt was in my name. They'd been using me. Since I was 19, apparently. It started with Dad convincing me to co-sign just to build credit. Then Mom, sweet, quiet Mom, opened an emergency line of credit after Karen lost her job. I hadn't questioned it. I hadn't checked. I trusted them. But the moment I vanished, their scaffolding collapsed. They were calling not out of love, but desperation. And I wasn't answering, not yet. Not until I knew everything. The next morning, I drove into town. A little law office tucked beside a gas station. I walked in gripping a folder full of bank statements, shaky signatures, and a decade's worth of misplaced trust. Her name was Jessica. Late 30s, sharp-suited, eyes that missed nothing. Her tone didn't traffic in sympathy, it dealt in facts, precision. She sat across from me, flipping through pages like a surgeon reviewing x-rays. Her brows furrowed. The air grew heavier with every click of a page. Then she closed the folder, leaned back, and delivered the verdict. David, she said, voice cool and surgical, this isn't just financial exploitation. This is identity fraud. If you wanted to pursue charges, you absolutely could. I blinked. Against my parents? Jessica didn't hesitate. And your sister. All three. They've been using your credit, your name. There's a clear pattern. Forged documents, unauthorized loans, it's textbook. She tapped a sheet with the end of her pen. They even used your identity to secure a second mortgage on the house. Something inside me slipped loose. What mortgage? I whispered. Jessica opened a second file and pushed it gently toward me. 3 years ago. Right after your grandfather passed away. They filed paperwork claiming you co-signed a $120,000 equity loan. Your name's on every page. I couldn't breathe. That's how they cleared Karen's credit card debt. Paid for Charles's DUI attorney. Covered the losses from your mom's catering business when it failed. They buried you under their mistakes, David. I sank into the chair, gripping the edge of the desk. My fingers had gone numb. They forged my name? Yes, Jessica said, without flinching. They never expected you to disappear. They counted on your silence. On your sense of duty. But the moment you stepped out of their reach, the cracks surfaced. If you hadn't vanished, you'd still be bleeding for them. Quietly. Invisibly. I looked down at the folder. It felt radioactive. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't just angry. I was awake. I stared at the ceiling of Jessica's office for a long, motionless moment, watching nothing, feeling everything. Then I lowered my gaze and met hers. So, I said quietly, what are my options? She folded her hands on the desk, her expression unreadable. Calm, clinical. But I could feel the weight behind her words. You can report the fraud, she said. That will open a formal investigation. If it plays out like I think it will, criminal charges aren't just possible, they're likely. Or, we can keep it civil but hit them where it hurts most, financially. We freeze the accounts. Demand repayment. Based on what you've shown me, you could force them into default within weeks. I swallowed the knot forming in my throat. And the house. Her eyes sharpened. Since you never signed the mortgage, the loan's legally invalid. If the bank verifies the forgery, and they will, it gets reversed. The house gets flagged. Possibly repossessed. At the very least, they'll have to refinance without your name propping it up. Silence settled between us like fog. Then I exhaled slowly, my voice low and even. I want everything back. Every cent. Every asset. Not because I need it, but because they believed they deserved it. They treated me like a resource, not a person. Jessica nodded, her smile faint, almost proud. Then we start today. And we did. First came the fraud reports to the credit bureaus. Every card, loan, utility frozen. Within 48 hours, the machine that kept them afloat began to seize. Phone lines were cut off. Car insurance lapsed. Even Karen's gym membership declined, her name now tangled in the mess they'd created with mine. Next came the letter. Not a message. Not a phone call. A notarized, certified document delivered directly to the family's front door. It outlined every offense, forged documents, unauthorized loans, falsified agreements. Every detail exposed like bone beneath torn skin. It ended with one cold line. You have 10 days to resolve the debt in full, or legal proceedings will begin without further warning. I didn't expect a response right away, but I underestimated their fear. The texts came first. Mom, David, please call me. Let's talk. Please. Karen, are you serious? You're destroying my life. Dad, you're bluffing. We did what had to be done for the family. I said nothing. Then came the voicemails. Charles tried to soften the blow, tried to play the peacemaker. Kid, come on. You're blowing this out of proportion. You've always been the responsible one. Let's sit down, work it out. We're family. But I wasn't theirs anymore. I stayed at the cabin. Let Jessica handle the crossfire from her office in town. Each day, I felt a little less poisoned. Each day, their panic grew louder. One morning, Karen sent a blurry selfie, tears streaking down her cheeks, framed by the empty space where her car had been towed. That same afternoon, my mother left a voicemail that cracked halfway through. David, your father's not well. His blood pressure's sky high. We're behind on everything. They might take the house. This isn't like you. You've always tried to keep us together. For a moment, my chest ached. But then I remembered her silence on my birthday. The stillness in her eyes as my father twisted the knife. And that ache turned to iron. Then came day 10. I was outside splitting firewood, sweat dripping down my temple, the axe biting deep into pine, when I heard the crunch of gravel under tires. I wiped my brow, stepped around the trees, and froze. They were here. All of them. My father, shoulders tense beneath a wrinkled shirt. My mother, thinner than I remembered, eyes red and hollow. Karen, her makeup smudged, her designer coat wrinkled at the collar. And Charles, trailing behind like a ghost from a bad memory. They stood in a clump at the edge of the drive, not speaking. Not moving. Just watching me like I was a stranger holding their fate in my hands. My father stepped forward first. We need to talk. I didn't answer. I just leaned the axe carefully against the log, wiped my palms on my jeans, and walked slowly up the porch steps. At the top, I paused. The cabin door opened before I could reach for it. And there she stood, half in shadow, half in morning light, Jessica, folder in hand, face calm as a still lake. She didn't speak. Didn't blink. Just stood there like a sentinel with a weapon made of paperwork and truth. The thick manila folder in her hands was heavier than any gun. My father faltered, blinking once, then twice, finally registering that Jessica wasn't some passing friend or helpful neighbor. His eyes narrowed as recognition settled like dust. He looked back over his shoulder at my mother, Karen, and Charles, then back at me. And I didn't say a word. I just stood there, waiting. What is this? My father asked, his tone carefully low, controlled, as if we were about to sip espresso and talk calmly like a real family. He was still clinging to that illusion of control. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I stepped aside and motioned toward the table on the porch. Sit, I said flatly. If you want to talk, we do it here. All of you. They hesitated. Christopher mumbled something sharp and low under his breath, probably about lawyers, but no one turned back. One by one, they climbed the steps. My mother's hands shook as she sat down. Karen didn't look up at all, her fingers twisting a loose thread on her sleeve until the fabric warped. My father's jaw was tight, his eyes scanning the porch like it might offer an exit. When they were finally seated, Jessica stepped out behind me, composed and deliberate. She didn't sit. She didn't need to. She set the folder down on the table between us like it was a detonator, then looked each of them in the eye. I'm Jessica, she said, calm and clear. I represent Mr. Dorenzo. Before we begin, know that this conversation is being recorded. Anything said here may be used in pending legal proceedings. My father scoffed, shaking his head like she was a waitress who'd brought the wrong bill. Are you serious? He spat. You brought a lawyer to ambush your own family? Jessica didn't blink. You ambushed him first. For 7 years. Karen's head finally lifted, her eyes narrowing. This is insane. You're acting like we're criminals. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I stepped forward, voice low and steady. No, Karen. You're just not used to me speaking without apologizing for it. That silenced her. Jessica opened the folder and began laying out the pages one by one, her tone as even as a metronome. Let's start with the forged mortgage. Here's the signature you claimed was David's. The same week he was in Lisbon on a corporate retreat. His passport confirms it. My mother's lips parted, but Jessica raised a single hand without looking at her. I'm not finished. More pages slid across the table like a slow reveal in a courtroom drama. Here's the credit card application with David's name and a falsified income report. The lease for the Mercedes Christopher, that was for your son, wasn't it? And here, she tapped the last one, Karen's business loan. Filed with David's social security number. My father leaned forward, voice rising. We're family. This wasn't some crime. We were doing what we had to do. We needed help. Jessica's expression cooled a few degrees. Intent doesn't erase illegality. David never consented. You manipulated his trust. You forged documents. You crossed the line. Silence fell like a weighted blanket. No one spoke. No one moved. I stepped back against the porch railing, arms folded. Do you even remember what you said on my birthday? I asked. My voice was quieter now, but every syllable landed like a nail. You said life would be easier if I vanished. You meant it. And not one of you, not one, objected. Karen dropped her gaze. My mother stared at her lap. My father looked away, his expression unreadable now, like a man finally realizing he might not walk away from this one. I left, I continued, because I was tired of being your safety net. Your backup plan. Your financial lifeline. For years, I've paid for your mistakes quietly, obediently. And the second I stepped away to breathe, you lost your minds. Because I wasn't a son to you. I was a credit score. A walking cosigner. And when I stopped being useful, you called me selfish. Jessica pulled out one last sheet and slid it forward with finality. This is a formal notice. Mr. Dorenzo is filing to freeze all joint accounts linked to his name. He is pursuing full compensation for damages to his credit, emotional distress, and repayment of all unauthorized debts. The total stands at approximately $194,000. Legal fees not included. The silence cracked. My father stood up so fast his chair clattered backwards. You think you're going to take us down over some paperwork? A judge won't side with you over your own family. I stepped closer, my voice ablaze. No. I think a judge will side with the truth. And I've got more than paperwork. I've got emails, screenshots, even voice memos from phone calls you forgot were being recorded. You've never been careful. You've just been arrogant. Christopher leaned forward, his voice uneven. This is crazy. We didn't mean for it to go that far. Jessica glanced at her watch, unbothered. You have 7 days to respond. If you wish to settle, we're open to discussion. If not, we proceed with a formal filing. Karen burst out suddenly, voice shaking. So that's it? You're just going to destroy us? Everything we've worked for? I laughed once, cold, bitter. Worked for? You built your lives with pieces of mine. My credit. My effort. My silence. I gave you everything, and you gave me a birthday toast that said the world would be better without me. I let that hang in the air. No one replied. Not even Christopher. Karen looked like she was about to argue, but instead, her face crumpled. The tears came fast, uncontrolled, as if she'd only just realized the fall was real. My mother reached out toward me, trembling fingers extending across the space like a lifeline. David, please, she whispered. We're family. I looked at her hand, at the chipped polish and the slight tremor. You were my family, I said. And I stepped back. They stared at me like I'd become something foreign. Like I'd grown armor overnight, turned stone where softness used to live. Maybe they were right. Or maybe for the first time, they were finally seeing the version of me I'd spent years hiding. The version that didn't beg. That didn't shrink. That didn't stay quiet. The sun dipped low behind the trees, casting long fingers of shadow across the porch. Jessica snapped the folder shut, slid it into her briefcase with the precision of a surgeon, and turned toward me. Are we done here? She asked softly. I nodded once. She looked back at them. Then I suggest you get a lawyer. No one replied. Chairs scraped against wood. No raised voices this time. No fury, no threats. Just a shuffling retreat like soldiers after losing a war they never thought they'd have to fight. They climbed back into the car. The engine coughed to life. And then they were gone. But I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. The deadline passed. 7 days of silence. No calls. No apologies. Not even a weak attempt at negotiation. Just the same echoing quiet I used to fear as a child. The kind that meant I was the one who had to fix everything. But this time I didn't wait. I didn't bend. Jessica filed the suit on a Monday morning. I signed every page with a steady hand. With each signature I felt another weight peel off my chest, like I was reclaiming myself line by line. Fraud. Identity theft. Emotional damages. We weren't playing soft anymore. That same week, Karen posted some cryptic plea on social media. Something about betrayal. About strangers wearing familiar faces. Her friends commented with broken hearts and false sympathy. I didn't respond. I didn't clarify. Because for once I didn't owe anyone an explanation. And then the fallout. Within weeks, the court flagged the mortgage documents. My father tried to pass it off as a harmless family arrangement, but Jessica dismantled him piece by piece. Time-stamped bank transfers, my passport scans, flight itineraries. Proof I'd been across an ocean when the papers were supposedly signed. The judge didn't flinch. The mortgage was declared fraudulent. Not yet repossessed, but the bank froze the property. Refinancing? Off the table. Late fees stacked like B. Christopher's. Interest ballooned like poison in a vein. Their carefully balanced house of lies began to fold. Karen's boutique disappeared quietly. No goodbye post. No explanation. Just a closed for renovations sign that never came down. Christopher's car, the one I unknowingly co-signed for, was repossessed 2 months after the payments stopped. He left a voicemail, slurring rage, calling me ungrateful, threatening me with karma. I deleted it halfway through. My mother called only once. No apology. No justification. Just 4 words, raw and flat. You've made your point. We're drowning. I paused, then said evenly, no. I've only just started cleaning up the mess you made. The lawsuit took nearly a year to resolve. They stalled, filed motions, claimed emotional hardship, tried to twist the narrative, painting me as vindictive, unstable, a son consumed by vengeance. But Jessica never wavered. She was a scalpel in a courtroom full of blunt instruments. Measured, methodical, lethal in her professionalism. When the final hearing arrived, the ruling came down like thunder. I won. Every charge. They were ordered to pay restitution. $198,000 plus costs. Their access to every account linked to my name was revoked. My credit was cleansed, rebuilt from the ground up. Karen was even penalized for falsifying her loan application. It stopped just shy of criminal charges. Because I let it. That was the only concession I made, not for them. For me. Because I wanted peace more than punishment. I used part of the settlement to restore my credit. A portion went into investments, a safety net I built for myself for the first time in my life. And the rest? I poured it back into the cabin. The place where I found myself again. The place where silence wasn't a weapon. Where I finally stopped asking to be seen. Took half a year. 6 months of dust, sawdust, and quiet work. But when it was done, the cabin barely resembled the lonely structure I'd fled to. The plumbing was overhauled. Solar panels crowned the roof like armor against dependence. Inside, a corner of the main room had been transformed into a warm, sunlit workspace. The fireplace now boasted a tall stone chimney, the one my grandfather had sketched on napkins but never lived to finish. It wasn't just a refuge anymore. It was a home, a place I'd chosen, a place I'd shaped with my own hands, not as an escape but as a beginning. One cold afternoon, as I hauled firewood across the clearing, I heard the crunch of gravel again, a car easing up the drive. I almost ignored it. Strangers were rare, uninvited ones. Rarer, but something intuition maybe made me look. It was Karen. She stepped out slowly. No heels, no eyeliner, just scuffed jeans and a hoodie that swallowed her frame. Her hair was pulled back in a careless knot, and she looked, not broken, but unguarded. She didn't come close. She stayed by the car, arms folded across her chest, sleeves pulled over her hands like she didn't know what to do with them. "I'm not here to fight," she said. Her voice was quiet, raw. No spin, no armor. She hesitated, glanced at the trees around her. "I wanted to see where you went, what you chose, instead of us." I watched her as she scanned the porch, the sky, the stillness wrapped around this place. She let out a slow breath. "It's beautiful," she said, almost to herself. "I get it now." I said nothing. "I was awful to you," she continued. "All of us were. I think we needed you to be the responsible one because none of us knew how to be. And when you stopped holding everything up, we fell apart. Because we'd never learned how to carry anything ourselves." I raised an eyebrow, careful. "Is that an apology?" She met my eyes, and for once, there was no flinch in hers. "It's an attempt," she said. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just thought if you ever wondered whether we regretted it, we do. Or at least I do." I believed her, not because she cried. She didn't. Not because she asked to be forgiven. She didn't do that either. I believed her because for the first time in years, She stood in front of me without expecting something in return. Just a truth, offered without strings. I gave her a small nod. Thanks for coming out here to say it. She lingered, just a second longer, maybe hoping for something more. A hug. A door opened, but I didn't offer it. Some things are better left unsaid. She gave a faint, almost shy smile, then turned back toward the car. The engine coughed to life. A moment later, she was gone, and the silence returned. But it didn't feel empty. I turned back to the cabin, the wind brushing against my face like breath, not a burden. For the first time in years, I felt light. Not because I'd reclaimed my credit. Not because the house was gone from my name or the debts erased. I was free because I had finally stepped out of the role they assigned me. The fixer. The crutch. The good son who endured in silence. I had faced them, exposed them, and walked away on my own terms. I hadn't needed to scream to be heard. I hadn't needed to break to be believed. I just had to disappear long enough for them to finally look. And when they did, they saw me.